The first blast tore the canyon open. SEAL Team Omega was shredded, trapped in a kill zone with no cover and no chance. Over the comms came the raw truth: "We're fecked!" Enemy fire poured from the ridges, cutting the team to pieces. Blood on the snow, seconds ticking away, survival slipping fast. Then one figure moved, a sniper, alone, exposed, with only 6 bullets and 11 minutes to save them all. Her first shot split the storm, and everything changed. From certain death to a fighting chance, one trigger pull turned chaos into survival. But how did one sniper turn an entire battlefield upside down? This is VeteranBiker. Comment 1 if you're new, 2 if you've been with us, 3 if you ride with us every week. Like, subscribe, and stay to the end. The explosion ripped through the valley like a thunderclap. Snow, soil, and shards of stone blasted skyward in a vicious plume, swallowing the lead men of Task Force Omega. Anna Monroe didn't have to hear the screams to know 2 soldiers were already gone. The valley floor was instantly alive with muzzle flashes, automatic rifles barking from unseen ridges, a storm of fire pouring down on her team. "Contact! Contact! Contact!" Voices shrieked over the radio. "2 men down! Cooper's hit! We're pinned!" Anna pressed harder into the ice-crusted rock that sheltered her vantage point. Her heart pounded, but her breathing stayed steady, trained discipline overriding panic. Through her scope she saw it all, the perfect geometry of the ambush, fighters spilling from hidden nests, guns braced against sandbags, tracer rounds carving the air into lethal webs. Omega was trapped. Then came Hayes's voice, flat with command, yet strained with urgency. "All stations, suppress the high ground." "Shadow, status." "Line of sight obstructed," Anna answered, her tone calm, clipped. "From here I can't engage." Another explosion shattered the canyon, showering her position with grit and ice. The team was being cut apart below, boxed into a ravine with no cover. She scanned left, then right, every angle limited by jagged rock and twisted pine. Then Hayes spoke again, quieter, like a man placing his last bet. "To the west, ridgeline, knife's edge fully exposed. You'll have a clean shot. Can you make it?" Anna's eyes slid to the barren ridge, sheer rock scoured by gale winds, no trees, no cover. To climb it was suicide. But below she saw Doc Miller dragging himself toward Cooper, rounds kicking up dirt inches from his face. She didn't hesitate. "I'm moving." She tore free her pack, kept only ammunition, and the TAC 338 slung to her chest. The rest clattered against the ice. Every ounce she shed might save a second. The clock had started. 11 minutes before the enemy reached the wounded and finished the job. The climb was murder. The wind wasn't a breeze but a living enemy, punching her sideways, stinging her skin with shards of ice. She jammed her boots into cracks, hauled herself upward with bloodied hands. Her rifle was cradled against her body, every move a balance between survival and protection of the weapon. Without it, she was nothing. Halfway up, a gust hammered her like a freight train. Her boots slipped on hidden ice, and for one sickening moment she was falling, fingers clawing uselessly until they found a narrow crack. The impact jolted her shoulder. Pain flared hot. Worse was the sound, the flat, sickening crack of her rifle smashing against granite. Terror spiked through her. If the barrel bent, if the scope shifted even a hair, every calculation would be worthless. She would climb to her death with no shot at redemption. She forced the thought into a box. Training ruled, one breath at a time. She hauled upward, scraping skin from her palms, lungs burning with the thin mountain air. 9 minutes left. She crested the ridge and slammed flat against the stone. Wind roared across the exposed summit, dragging her breath away. Below, the ambush still churned, gunfire echoing off canyon walls, shouts fractured by static. She unfolded the bipod, pressed steel legs deep into the rock, chambered around. Her world shrank to a circle of glass. Through the scope, a fighter knelt behind cover, a box-shaped detonator in his hands, another trap. If he lived another second, more of Omega would die. Anna exhaled, finger tightening, then the wind surged again, a brutal gust scattering snow dust into chaos. Her sight picture warped. She didn't fire. Patience, timing, precision. The gust ebbed. She shifted a hair left, squeezed. The rifle bucked, the report stolen instantly by the storm. 7 endless seconds later, the detonator disintegrated in the man's hand, his chest erupting in a dark blossom. He toppled silently into snow. Hayes's voice cracked through the comms, disbelief cutting into awe, target down. "That was you, Shadow?" No reply. She was already racking the bolt. Brass clattered across stone, vanished over the edge. A second shot barked back at her. Enemy sniper. The round hissed past her ear, exploding rock into her cheek. She dropped lower, body pressed flat, eyes scanning. One flicker of light across the valley gave him away. Anna swiveled, calculated the angle in 3 heartbeats and fired. Through the scope she saw the man's rifle jerk skyward, then vanish into shadow. Silence on his line. Duel over. But below, the assault pressed harder. Fire teams bounded forward, one soldier setting up a heavy machine gun at the mouth of the ravine. If he opened up, the team was finished. Anna centered crosshairs on his chest, squeezed. The weapon toppled with him, lifeless in the snow. Her magazine emptied fast. She worked each bolt action like clockwork, each shot a heartbeat of survival, one leader directing a flank advance, dead. Another charging at Doc's position dropped mid-stride, one last round left. Her eyes darted across the chaos, searching. Then she saw it, a cornice of unstable snow and ice, hanging over the enemy's concealed path. A chance. She shifted aim high above their heads and fired. For a moment, nothing. Then the mountain groaned. The overhang split, crashed down in a roaring avalanche, swallowing the fire team and sealing their route. White dust filled the canyon as the thundering mass swept through, and then the heavy chop of rotors. A Blackhawk swept into view, downdraft whipping snow into frenzied spirals. Door gunners opened fire, miniguns shrieking as tracers ripped across enemy lines. The battlefield erupted in smoke, dust and thunder. Anna lay motionless on the ridge, rifle empty, chest heaving. She had bought them time. 12 minutes, 6 bullets, a team still alive. But as the Black Hawk hovered and Omega scrambled to load the wounded, she knew one truth. She had traded invisibility for legend. Every fighter in the valley now knew the ghost had a face, and they were hunting her. Anna hurled herself into the climb with the ferocity of a woman racing against time. The ridge loomed above like a blade slicing into storm clouds, black against the snow-washed sky. The wind clawed at her, furious, ripping the breath from her lungs and shoving her sideways as if determined to tear her free of the mountain. Her gloves were already shredded from the earlier slip, fingertips raw and burning as they scraped against the granite. Every handhold was an act of faith, every foothold a bargain with gravity. Below, the firefight roared, Omega's rifles cracking back in desperate defiance, enemy guns answering in merciless chorus. The sound was distorted by the canyon walls, magnified into a thunder that shook her ribs. 8 minutes left. "Shadow, report!" Hayes's voice growled through the headset. "Ascending," Anna rasped, teeth clenched against the wind. 200 meters to ridge. "Copy. Hold on, we're bleeding down here." She didn't answer. Words meant seconds and seconds meant lives. She shifted her body weight, jammed her boot into a narrow crevice, hauled upward. The TAC 338 was strapped tight across her chest, its weight a brutal anchor but also the promise of salvation. She clung to the rifle as if it were the rope pulling her out of hell. The wind shrieked again, this time carrying the high, ugly chatter of a PKM machine gun. Through the icy air came a cascade of ricochets, stone fragments spraying into her cheek. The enemy had spotted movement, her movement. Muzzle flashes winked from across the ravine, and heavy rounds chewed into the ridge face. Anna pressed herself flat, heart hammering. Pebbles skittered past her boots into nothingness. She counted to 3, breath shallow, then forced her body upward again. The gunner raked the slope, but his angle was poor, more noise than threat. She moved between bursts, a ghost climbing against the storm. 7 minutes. She dragged herself over a ledge, chest scraping raw against the rock, and lay still. Blood trickled from a torn knuckle, the cold already numbing it to wax. She dared a glance down. From here, the view was merciless. The ravine a cauldron of fire, Omega scattered behind boulders, trying to keep their wounded alive under relentless suppression. She spotted Cooper lying motionless as Doc fought to cinch a tourniquet, bullets sparking around him. Hayes was shouting orders, visible through her scope, even without magnification, directing fire, rallying the team, but their circle was shrinking fast. Anna tore her gaze away. Staring meant hesitation, and hesitation meant death. She turned back to the climb. The final approach was near vertical. Ice crusted the stone, brittle sheets that snapped under her grip. Her breath came in ragged bursts, throat burning with the metallic taste of blood. Every muscle screamed. The rifle banged against her chest with each desperate movement, a reminder of what awaited at the summit. 6 minutes. Another gust slammed her sideways. Her boot slipped. Suddenly she was dangling from one hand, legs kicking over the void. Pain tore through her shoulder, white hot. For an instant, the abyss beckoned. She ground her teeth, forced her other hand upward, found a crack, and hauled herself back. Her chest heaved. The rifle had swung violently, smashing again into the rock. The scope mount groaned. She didn't allow panic. Not now. She shoved upward, clawing, ignoring the fire in her lungs. Finally, her hands found the ridge lip. With a final guttural cry, she heaved her body over and collapsed on the summit, cheek pressed against ice. The wind howled mercilessly across the exposed spine, nothing to break its fury. She rolled onto her stomach, yanked the rifle free, slammed the bipod into the stone. 5 minutes. Her world shrank to the scope's circle. Down below, the geometry of battle unfolded in cold clarity. The enemy had spread along the ridges, arcs of fire crossing into the ravine. Omega's return fire was stuttering, sporadic, men pinned behind hopeless cover. Doc was still exposed, body draped protectively over Cooper. Hayes was rallying the survivors, but their ammo was burning fast. Anna's crosshairs swept left. A fighter crouched over a heavy machine gun, belt rattling as he poured rounds toward the pinned medic. She centered on his chest, exhaled, squeezed. The TAC 338 roared, recoil slamming into her shoulder. Through the scope she saw the man's body snap backward, the weapon falling silent. She racked the bolt, brass spinning away. Her next target, a sniper tucked into a shadowed alcove, muzzle flash betraying his position. He was skilled, his shots precise, stitching closer to Hayes each second. Anna shifted, calculated the drop and fired. Her round drilled the alcove and the enemy slumped sideways, rifle sliding from limp hands. 4 minutes. Target down, she muttered, though no one could hear. Her eyes swept again. A figure sprinted low across the snow, clutching an RPG tube. He dropped to one knee, aiming directly at the canyon floor, at Omega's last defensive knot. Anna's scope tracked his movement. Her fingers squeezed. The man jerked, the launcher tumbling harmlessly into the snow, but the fight was far from won. Across the canyon, a cluster of fighters regrouped behind cover, preparing to rush the ravine. Anna's scope locked onto the squad leader, his arm raised in silent command. She fired. The bullet punched through his chest, his hand falling limp. Confusion rippled through the squad, their advance faltering. 3 minutes, her rounds were running low. She checked her magazine, 2 left. Her mind calculated priorities in brutal math. 1 enemy crouched near Doc's position, rifle raised for a killing shot. Anna shifted instantly, pressed the trigger. The man folded into the snow, lifeless. 1 round left. Her gaze flicked across the field. Then she saw it, above the ravine, a massive slab of unstable snow clinging to the cliff, a natural weapon. She adjusted her aim upward, ignoring the enemy fighters. Her last bullet punched into the cornice. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the mountain groaned. Cracks spiderwebbed through the ice and the entire slab sheared free. A thundering avalanche tore down into the ravine, swallowing enemy positions, crushing cover, hurling men screaming into the white torrent. The canyon fell silent under the roar, and then a new sound, the heavy thump of rotor blades. The Black Hawk swept into view, its shadow slicing across the snow. Door gunners leaned out, M134 miniguns spinning, unleashing torrents of tracers that stitched fire across the canyon walls. Enemy survivors ducked for cover, their ambush shattered. Omega surged to their feet, dragging wounded toward the hovering lifeline. Anna stayed locked to her scope, covering them. Her magazine was empty, but her eyes were weapons now. She relayed coordinates, warned of movements, called out threats with steady precision. Every word was a lifeline thrown to the men below. "Shadow, this is Omega 1. Hayes' voice thundered over the comms. "We're moving to extraction. You've bought us time." Anna's lips tightened. She had bought more than time. She had given them a chance. But she also knew the cost. Her position was now branded into enemy memory. They would come for her. She stayed prone on the windswept ridge as the Black Hawk dipped lower, rotor wash blasting snow in furious whirlwinds. Omega loaded their wounded, gunners laying down sheets of covering fire. The battlefield churned with chaos, tracers, smoke grenades, shouts blending with the unending roar of rotors. Then Hayes' voice again, tight, urgent, "Shadow, status." Anna pressed her cheek to the stock, gaze locked on the retreat. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, but her voice was steady. "Empty. Rifles cold. Copy. Hold position until we're airborne." The Black Hawk clawed skyward, rotors hammering. Enemy fire chased it, sparks bouncing from its armored belly, but the gunners answered with savage fury. Smoke and snow swallowed the valley. Anna rolled onto her back, eyes burning from the wind, lungs heaving with frozen air. She had climbed into hell and fired 6 bullets. The team was alive, for now, but she knew the fight wasn't finished, not by a long shot. The rotors faded into distance, swallowed by mountain air, leaving Anna alone on the ridge. The silence afterward was heavier than the storm. Her chest rose and fell in harsh rhythm, each breath a clawing ache against ribs bruised by recoil and stone. Her rifle lay across her arms, the magazine empty, the bolt locked back in mute defiance of her need. Below, the battlefield smoldered. Smoke drifted in thin veils over the ravine where the avalanche had crashed through, burying bodies beneath tons of ice. The survivors had scattered into cover, disoriented, momentarily leaderless. Omega was gone, airlifted into the storm. Their silhouettes vanished into the sky like fading ghosts. Anna wasn't with them. "Shadow, status?" Hayes' voice cracked through the comms, ragged with wind and static. "Still on ridge," she answered, forcing steadiness. "No ammo, moving to extract Point Sierra. Negative, Sierra compromised. Intelligence reports movement from the south. Divert to Tango. 5 kilometers, will wait." She froze. 5 kilometers of exposed mountain terrain, enemy reinforcements already inbound. Every second she stayed on this ridge, the odds tilted further against her. She swallowed hard. Copy, moving. She collapsed her bipod, slung the rifle across her back and rose into the wind. Her legs shook, muscles rebelling after the brutal climb, but she forced them into motion. The ridge was a knife blade cutting through cloud, narrow enough that one misstep would send her plunging into the void. The wind screamed across it, tearing at her pack straps, clawing for her balance. She moved crouched, every step a calculation. Snow whipped into her face, freezing her lashes into crystals. Her ears still rang with phantom gunfire, with the metallic snap of her last round chambering with the roar of the avalanche she had unleashed. The storm was not her only enemy. Within minutes she heard them, the echo of voices carried thin on the gale. Foreign, urgent, closer than she wanted. She dropped low against the ridge, pressed into stone and scanned. 6 figures emerged below, black silhouettes against white snow. They moved in professional formation, rifles low, eyes sweeping. Not local militia, mercenaries, by their pace and posture. One raised a hand, signaling. The team split, 3 angling uphill, 3 circling through the ravine. Their hunt had already begun. Anna cursed under her breath. They were tracking her. She moved quickly, abandoning the exposed crest and sliding down toward a line of boulders. Her boots crunched against ice, each sound amplified into betrayal. She slowed, forcing discipline. Quiet was life. For 20 minutes she threaded her way along the ridge flank, weaving between rocks, careful not to leave tracks. The wind helped, gusts scouring her footprints into nothing. But the mercenaries weren't amateurs. They would find signs. They would follow. The first shot came sudden, a crack that split the air. Stone splintered inches from her head, peppering her cheek with grit. Sniper. She threw herself flat, rolled behind a slab of rock. Another shot ripped across the ridge, whining as it ricocheted into the void. He had her bracketed. Anna breathed shallow, forcing herself still. She scanned, eyes darting across the jagged opposite face. Nothing, just black stone, white snow, shifting shadow. Then, there. A faint glimmer like a star winking from darkness, sunlight on glass. She slid the TAC 338 forward, cursing the empty chamber. Her fingers brushed her last pouch, only the sidearm remained, magazines light with rounds designed for close work. Not enough reach to duel a sniper a kilometer away. Her mind raced. Options bled thin. Fight was impossible. Evasion her only path. She rose in a crouch, sprinted low across the ridge, bullets snapping at her heels. Each impact spat stone into the air. Each near miss a reminder of seconds borrowed. She hurled herself into a shallow crevice, body slamming hard against rock, breath exploding from her lungs. The sniper adjusted, but the angle was gone. She was blind to him, he was blind to her. Her heart pounded like a war drum. She checked her watch, 3 minutes gone. Tango still 4 kilometers ahead. Reinforcements converging. The mercenaries would tighten the noose with every heartbeat. Shadow, Hayes's voice broke in, low but urgent. Be advised, intercepts show hostile chatter. They want you alive, alive. That meant capture. That meant interrogation, black rooms, broken bodies. That meant the data her father had died to protect would be pried from her with knives and fire, not an option. She crawled deeper into the crevice, boots scraping against stone, until she found a narrow chute sloping downward. Without hesitation she slid into it, body grinding against jagged rock, sparks of pain tearing through skin. She landed hard on a ledge 10 meters lower, teeth rattling, rifle digging into her spine. She lay still, listening. Above, footsteps, voices. They were close now. She heard one kneel, the scrape of a hand against rock. They had found her tracks. Her fingers closed around the pistol at her thigh. 16 rounds, not enough, but she would make everyone bleed. The mercenaries spread, shadows flitting across the rocks. One leaned too far, silhouette clear against the sky. Anna raised the pistol, fired once. The shot cracked loud in the storm. The man jerked, collapsed without a sound. Shouts erupted. Muzzles swung toward her position. Bullets hammered the stone, sparks flying. She rolled deeper, sliding behind another rock. Snow sprayed as rounds chewed into the ledge she'd vacated. She fired again, twice forcing them back. Then silence, too silent. Her ears caught it, the faint hum lower, steadier than the wind. Engines. Anna's stomach dropped. Reinforcements weren't climbing anymore. They were driving. From her angle she saw them. 2 black SUVs grinding up the snow-choked fire road that snaked toward the ridge. Their windows dark, their movements deliberate. These weren't militia trucks. These were agency vehicles, armored, discreet, deniable. She was no longer hunted by a handful of guerrillas. This was orchestrated, controlled. The comms crackled again. Hayes's voice grim. "They've committed assets. We have proof now, Shadow. Weaver's fingerprints are all over this." Anna's jaw clenched. Weaver, Weller, the traitor in CIA uniform, the man who had briefed them into this trap. Her father's ghost whispered in her ear, "Trust no one." She pushed forward, crawling along the ridge line, every muscle screaming. Her path angled down toward a cluster of stunted pines. If she could reach the tree line, she might lose them. Shots followed, snapping through branches as she sprinted. Bark exploded around her. She weaved between trunks, ducking low, forcing her lungs to keep pace. The wind carried the shouted orders of her pursuers, closer, angrier. She stumbled into a frozen creek bed, ice cracking under her boots. She followed it, the walls rising on either side, muffling sound. Her breath echoed, harsh and ragged. A shadow moved ahead. Too late, one mercenary had cut her off. He stepped from behind a boulder, rifle raised, eyes cold behind goggles. For a fraction of a second they stared at each other. Then he fired. Anna dove sideways, the shot tearing through her jacket sleeve. She rolled, came up on one knee, pistol barking twice. The man collapsed into snow, weapon clattering from limp fingers. Adrenaline burned hot in her veins. She ripped the rifle from his body, checked the chamber. A Remington 700 suppressed with a full magazine. Crude compared to her TAC 338, but a gift from the dead. She slung it across her shoulder, sprinted onward. The creek twisted, narrowing, until it spat her into an open clearing. She froze. Ahead lay the SUVs, their doors open, mercenaries spilling out like dark ants. The trap was complete. She spun back, but voices echoed from the creek. They were behind her too. Anna's eyes darted across the clearing. To the east, a sheer slope dotted with jagged rocks. Treacherous but climbable. To the west, forest denser but slower. The choice was instant. She bolted east, boots hammering frozen ground, bullets whistling past. She clawed up the slope, fingers bleeding against sharp stone. A round grazed her hip, hot fire tearing into flesh. She hissed but didn't stop. At the crest she rolled into cover, heart hammering, vision tunneling with pain. Below, the mercenaries regrouped, their shouts furious. One raised a radio. They were calling in more. Anna pressed her back against stone, breath ragged. Tango lay ahead, still kilometers away. Behind her, the net drew tighter. Her father's words echoed in memory, carved into her soul from long nights on Montana ridges. A sniper's greatest weapon isn't the rifle, it's patience. She exhaled, blood dripping into snow. Patience would not save her now, only fire. Anna pulled the stolen rifle into her lap, checked the sights and waited. The hunt was far from finished. The clearing below boiled with movement. Dark figures darted between SUVs, weapons raised, scanning the slope for any flicker of movement. Anna kept her cheek pressed to the cold stone, the Remington balanced across her knees. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but her breathing remained slow, measured. Patience. Always patience. She watched one of the mercenaries lift a radio, barking clipped instructions. The others spread into a fan formation, sweeping the tree line. They weren't charging blindly, they were methodical, disciplined, trained for this exact hunt. Anna shifted her scope, adjusted the crosshairs to compensate for distance. The wind cut across the clearing, tugging at the fine snow drifting through the air. She exhaled, slow and steady, until the crosshairs rested on the man with the radio. Her fingers squeezed. The suppressed crack was little more than a cough, lost in the wind. A heartbeat later, the man collapsed, radio tumbling from lifeless hands. Chaos rippled instantly through the formation. Shouts rose, rifles swung upward, spraying blind bursts toward the slope. Bullets shattered rock, throwing icy shards against Anna's cheek. She slid back behind cover, already cycling the bolt. Another round slid into place with a satisfying click. They would expect her to retreat, to run further up the slope. Instead, Anna slithered laterally, boots and elbows dragging her across frozen ground. She popped up 30 meters from her previous position, sighted again. Another mercenary moved for cover. She dropped him with a single shot. 2 down. The rest were furious now, firing in concentrated bursts, chewing the slope into splinters. But every shot wasted was one less they'd have when they closed in. Anna knew she couldn't hold this ground forever. The ridge was her advantage only until they flanked her. She rose, crouched low, and sprinted toward a line of fir trees clinging to the slope. Bullets hissed past her, one tearing a groove across her pack. She hurled herself behind the first trunk, bark exploding as rounds ripped into it. Her lungs burned, her wounded hips screamed with each movement, but she forced herself onward. Tree by tree, rock by rock, she fought her way across the slope, a moving shadow in a storm of lead. "Shadow status?" Hayes's voice crackled through the headset, ragged with static. "Contact," she hissed. "Multiple hostiles. I'm moving to Tango, but they're closing." "Hold on. We're repositioning. Extraction windows narrow. You have 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Against 24 men and armored vehicles." She bit down the curse that rose in her throat and kept moving. Behind her the mercenaries regrouped. Some stayed to suppress, others peeled off, circling wide to cut her escape. They weren't just chasing, they were herding her, pushing her toward an inevitable kill box. Anna broke free of the tree line and into another clearing. Ahead, the slope fell sharply into a frozen basin. The snow there was knee-deep, untouched, a white field that would expose every step. She scanned quickly, no alternative. To the east, cliffs too sheer. To the west, the fire road the SUVs had taken. She had no choice. She plunged into the basin, boots crunching deep, each step an anchor. The snow slowed her to a crawl. Panic threatened at the edges of her discipline. Behind, voices rose louder, closer. Then came the unmistakable sound of engines, more vehicles moving along the road, circling to cut her off. Her chest heaved with exertion, breath pluming in ragged clouds. She forced herself to ignore the burning in her legs, the tearing pain in her hip. Forward, always forward. Halfway across she spotted a cluster of boulders jutting from the snow, half buried, but tall enough to shield her body. She collapsed behind them, chest heaving, and checked the rifle. 3 rounds left, her pistol, half a magazine, the TAC 338 still strapped across her back, useless without ammunition. The first mercenary appeared on the basin's rim, a dark silhouette framed against the pale sky. He pointed, shouting to the others. Anna raised the Remington, crosshairs steady, and fired. He dropped, but his body had already done its job, marking her position. Bullets raked the snow around the boulders, geysers of white erupting with every impact. Anna pressed herself flat, snow soaking through her fatigues, icy water burning against raw skin. She rolled, fired blind, then crawled deeper into the hollow between the rocks. The firefight grew deafening. For every round she fired, 20 answered. The air stank of cordite and churned powder, smoke clinging to the cold. Then silence, too sudden, too complete. Anna froze, pistol raised, ears straining. Snow whispered as boots shifted. Then she saw them, 2 mercenaries flanking low, crawling through the drifts to box her in. She let the first come closer, closer still, until she could see the frost clinging to his goggles. Then she surged upward, pistol barking twice. He collapsed, his partner jerking back in shock. She pivoted, fired again, the second man falling lifeless into the snow. No time to celebrate. Shouts erupted, more boots crunching through snow. She checked her pistol, 2 rounds left. Her mind raced. Ammunition gone, surrounded on all sides. She scanned the basin, then her eyes caught movement above. A cornice of ice jutted from the slope's rim, fragile and fractured. Another avalanche waiting to be triggered. She holstered the pistol, grabbed the Remington, and aimed high. 1 round chambered, 1 chance. She exhaled, steadied, squeezed. The crack was sharp, echoing across the basin. A heartbeat later, the ice groaned. Cracks spiderwebbed outward, widening, deepening. With a roar that drowned even the gunfire, the cornice sheared free. Tons of snow cascaded into the basin, a white tidal wave obliterating everything in its path. Mercenaries screamed, swallowed in an instant. Vehicles reversed frantically on the road, too slow to escape the surge. Anna pressed herself against the boulders, the avalanche blasting past her, ice and snow hammering her body, threatening to drag her down. She held firm, clinging until the roar faded, replaced by suffocating silence. When she lifted her head, the basin was transformed. The mercenaries were gone, buried. The vehicles lay half submerged in the snowfield, engines still sputtering before choking into silence. Anna rose on trembling legs, chest heaving, face streaked with frost and blood. Her rifle was gone, lost beneath the avalanche. Only her pistol remained nearly empty. But she was alive. She stumbled onward, boots crunching through the new snowpack. Every step carried her closer to Tango. Every step dragged her further from the edge of collapse. Minutes blurred into one another, her vision tunneled, muscles leaden, wounds burning. The mountain pressed down on her like a predator refusing to relent. Finally, through the trees ahead, she glimpsed it, a frozen plateau marked by a flare's faint glow. Tango, extraction, relief surged through her veins. She quickened her pace, nearly stumbling with each step. Then, as she broke into the clearing, her relief died. The plateau was empty, no Black Hawk, no team, nothing but wind and snow. Her radio crackled. Hayes's voice was sharp, urgent, shaken. Shadow, change of plans. Tango's hot. They've got eyes everywhere. Hold your position. We're working an alternate. Anna's knees nearly buckled. The promise of safety was a lie snatched away. She glanced back. Already she could hear distant shouts, see faint movement in the trees. The avalanche hadn't killed them all. The hunt wasn't over. Her grip tightened on the pistol. She was out of bullets, out of time, out of options, and yet she smiled, lips split with blood and frost. The fight was only beginning. The plateau was empty. The flare guttered weakly against the wind, its glow mocking in the desolation. Anna dropped to one knee, chest heaving, pistol hanging heavy in her hand. Every instinct screamed at her to keep moving, but her body trembled on the edge of collapse. Static cracked in her earpiece. Then Hayes's voice, steady but grim. Shadow, listen carefully. Tango's compromised. They anticipated us. We're diverting you. Sit rep. Anna forced breath into her lungs. One magazine left, hip grazed, rifle lost, hostiles regrouping. They'll be on me in minutes. You're not alone, Hayes said. His words carried weight, iron wrapped in exhaustion. "We're coming back for you. But while you're still in the open, you need to hear this." She frowned, scanning the tree line for movement. "Now? Yes. Because you won't trust what happens next unless you know the truth." The silence stretched, filled only by the hiss of wind across ice. Then Hayes spoke again, lower, almost personal. "I knew your father, Anna. Jonathan Monroe wasn't just a soldier, he was my partner, and the mission that killed him was no accident." Her breath caught, sharp as a knife under her ribs. She remembered the folded flag, the official condolences, the sterile words, equipment failure during a night jump, a closed casket, a void left in her life like a cauterized wound. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying he was murdered," Hayes said bluntly, and the man behind it was Charles Weller. The name hung like smoke in her mind. Weller, the smooth-talking CIA liaison who had briefed Omega, who had assured them the operation was routine reconnaissance. The man whose absence during the ambush had screamed louder than any gunfire. Her grip on the pistol tightened until her knuckles whitened. "You're certain?" "I saw him," Hayes replied. "Before the ambush detonated, I caught him through my optics. Not across the ocean, not in some safe office. He was standing with Azim Karim, smiling like they were old friends." The ground shifted beneath Anna's feet. Weller, the supposed ally, shaking hands with the ghost who had orchestrated attacks for decades. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. Hayes continued, his voice raw. "This wasn't just bad intel, it was engineered. Weller fed them our route, our timeline, everything. He wanted us wiped out, and this isn't new. Your father found pieces of it years ago." Anna's chest tightened. Her father's journals, the whispered fragments he never explained, the way he had trained her with relentless precision. Always teaching her patience, calculation, discipline, and always beneath his calm, the shadow of something he never named. "He called it Cold Harvest," Hayes said, "an operation buried so deep it doesn't exist on paper. Your father stumbled onto it. He believed certain people in our own government were cultivating enemies, turning assets like Karim into monsters, because a credible threat justifies endless war. He wanted to expose it. Before he could, he was eliminated." The words slammed into Anna with the weight of a lifetime. Cold harvest, a seed planted in secret, watered with blood, harvested in silence. Her father hadn't died by chance. He had died because he had dared to seek truth. Her throat burned as she forced words out. "And you've known this the whole time?" "I suspected," Hayes said. "But suspicion won't keep you alive in a firefight, and it won't topple men like Weller. I needed proof. Today, we got it." That phone recovered from the enemy camp. American-made, military-grade. It ties directly back to him. Anna pressed her forehead against her forearm, snow biting cold against her skin. Rage warred with grief, surging hot and blinding. Her father's voice whispered in memory, "A sniper's greatest weapon isn't the rifle, it's patience, patience, even now when every nerve screamed for vengeance." "Why tell me now?" she asked. "Because you're not just a sniper anymore," Hayes said. "You're part of this fight, whether you want to be or not. And because your father didn't leave you with nothing, he left a way forward." Anna lifted her head, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" "He hid something," Hayes replied. "A cache, documents, data drives, evidence, everything he uncovered. I don't know where, but he left me a clue before he died. Where shadow meets the dawn. He told me you would understand." Her chest constricted. A place etched into her memory, where mornings blazed with the first sun, where her father had taught her to shoot, to breathe, to wait. Dawn Ridge. The ridge above their Montana home, its steel target scarred by years of practice. She whispered the name aloud, her breath visible in the frozen air. Dawn Ridge. Hayes caught it. "That's it, isn't it?" "Yes." "Then that's our next move," Hayes said. "But first you need to get out of there alive. I'll get you clear, I swear it." Movement flickered at the tree line. Anna snapped her pistol up, sighted on a dark figure creeping forward. Her last 2 rounds barked. The man collapsed into the snow. More voices erupted, closer now, boots crunching on ice. The hunt was tightening. Hayes's voice hardened. "Anna, listen to me. You have to move. Keep low. Use the storm. Make them bleed for every step. Rendezvous in 20. We'll get you home." She rose, pain stabbing through her hip, exhaustion screaming in every muscle. She holstered the empty pistol, grabbed a fallen rifle from the snow, and forced her legs into motion. The truth weighed heavy on her shoulders, heavier than her rifle, heavier than the storm. Her father had died fighting men who wore the same flag she carried, and now she carried his unfinished war. Anna Monroe was no longer just shadow. She was the hunter her father had raised, and she would finish what he began. The snow still clung to her boots when Anna stepped onto Montana soil. The flight had been long, stitched together by false identities, a military transport blurred into civilian airliners, then into the anonymity of a rental truck crawling along mountain backroads. By the time she reached the valley, the sun was bleeding low on the horizon, washing the ridgeline in copper and fire. She killed the engine, silence pressed down, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal. Before her, the log cabin stood as it always had, stubborn, weathered, solid against the wilderness. Her father's cabin, her childhood home, a place she had avoided since his funeral, the memories too sharp, too raw. Now it looked smaller, emptier. A hollow monument to a man she'd thought gone by accident. She sat for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. The storm of Afghanistan still echoed inside her, the roar of avalanches, the rattle of machine guns, the ragged voice of Hayes telling her the truth, and above it all, her father's ghost, where shadow meets the dawn. Anna forced herself to move. She slid from the truck, boots crunching over gravel, her eyes sweeping the tree line automatically. Old habits. The place smelled the same, pine, dust, faint smoke clinging to wood. The caretaker had kept it clean but untouched, like a museum of Jonathan Monroe's life. Inside, the air carried weight. Her father's books still lined the shelves, titles on history, ballistics, and philosophy. His fishing rod hung over the door, a framed photo of them together, Anna with pigtails, clumsy hands wrapped around a .22, her father's steady arms guiding her stance. She reached out, fingertips brushing the glass. It would have been easy to collapse into memory, but time wasn't her ally. Weller had resources, reach, eyes everywhere. If he suspected Hayes had sent her here, the net would already be closing. She swept the cabin methodically, setting simple alarms the way her father had taught her. Tripwires strung with fishing line, tin cans balanced on ledges, flour dusted across the floorboards to reveal footprints. Old school but unbreakable. Only then did she shoulder her pack and turn toward the ridge. Dawn Ridge. The climb was familiar, every bend of the trail etched into her muscles from years of practice. As a child, she had bounded up these rocks with her father at her back, his voice patient, his steps sure. As a teenager, she had cursed every incline, every early morning when he dragged her from bed before sunrise. Now, each step felt like walking into his shadow. The forest thinned. The ridge opened before her, jagged granite against a sky streaked with fire. There it was, the steel target plate bolted to a boulder, pockmarked from decades of shots. She remembered her father's laugh, the way he had tapped the plate and told her, "Steel doesn't lie, neither do you, if you trust your eyes." Anna knelt beside the plate. Rust clung to the bolts, but they held. She pulled a wrench from her pack and set to work. The metal groaned in protest, but one by one the bolts came loose. The plate shifted, revealing a hollow cut into the stone. Her pulse quickened. Inside was a waterproof container, small enough to hold in one hand. She drew it out with care, brushing away dust. The latch snapped open with a metallic click. Inside, a notebook, pages covered in her father's sharp handwriting, a USB drive, and a photograph. Anna unfolded the photo. 3 men stood in front of a battered helicopter. Her father, younger but unmistakable, Hayes, with more hair and fewer scars, and a third man she recognized instantly, Azim Karim. Not the ghost of today, but younger, leaner, his eyes already sharp with fire. But there was a fourth figure, standing at the edge of the frame, Charles Weller. 2 decades younger but unmistakable. Her stomach turned, proof. Not just betrayal in the present, but complicity stretching back years. Her father hadn't imagined conspiracy. He had lived alongside it. She flipped through the notebook. Pages of dates, locations, code names. Cold Harvest appeared again and again, underlined, circled, annotated. Transactions, transfers, strange designations, evidence cryptic but damning. The USB drive would hold the rest. She closed the container, slipped it back into her pack. The weight was immense, heavier than any rifle she had carried. This was her father's legacy, and the reason men like Weller would stop at nothing to kill her. Then noise, a low growl, mechanical, carried on the wind. Anna froze. Engines. She slid to the ridge's edge, lifted her binoculars. 2 black SUVs crawled up the dirt road toward the cabin, their tinted windows glinting in the dying light. Dust plumed behind them, deliberate, unhurried, not locals, not lost travelers. Her pulse kicked into overdrive. They had found her. Anna moved quickly, cinching her pack tight, scanning for routes. She couldn't go back to the cabin. It was compromised, and the ridge was no place to make a stand. She had to move, draw them away from the cache, survive long enough to rendezvous with Hayes. She descended laterally, sliding along the ridge's flank, her boots finding purchase on familiar stone. She knew these woods, these trails. Weller's men didn't. That was her only advantage. But they weren't amateurs. Within minutes she heard them. Doors slamming, orders barked, boots crunching through pine needles. She glimpsed them through branches. 6 men, dressed civilian but moving like soldiers, compact submachine guns at the ready. Their leader, tall with grey hair cropped close, raised a hand, directing them toward the ridge. They were tracking her. Anna crouched low, heart steadying. Her father's training whispered through her bones. Don't run. Maneuver. She angled south, deeper into the forest, weaving through trunks, careful to mask her trail. But one slip was inevitable, a broken branch, a scuffed boot print, a whisper of movement. She reached a narrow stream, its surface coated with thin ice. Perfect. She stepped carefully into the water, following its course downstream. The cold bit like knives, but her tracks vanished beneath the current. Minutes later, voices rose behind her, frustrated. She pushed onward, muscles numbing, until the stream widened into a clearing. Beyond it, the fire road, her breath caught. Headlights, another vehicle rolling slow, cutting off her exit. She crouched low, hand tightening on her pistol. Her father's words echoed again, patience. 1 shot, 1 life. The hunt was on, and Anna Monroe had no intention of being the prey. The forest was alive with sound. Branches snapped. Boots crushed pine needles, and the low murmur of men speaking clipped commands carried through the cold Montana air. Anna crouched in the hollow of a fallen log, heartbeat steady despite the chaos moving around her. The data cache pressed against her spine inside the pack, every ounce of its weight a reminder of what was at stake. Her breath fogged in the fading afternoon light. She could smell the gasoline from the SUVs below, hear the thrum of engines left idling like hungry beasts. These weren't hunters who'd tire after a few hours. They were trained operators, well paid, relentless, and under orders to bring her in alive. Alive meant leverage. Alive meant Weller would wring her dry before ending her, not an option. Anna eased her pistol from its holster, checking the magazine by touch, half full. Her stolen Remington was slung at her side, 2 rounds left in the chamber. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a message. A voice barked nearby. The men were spreading, sweeping the woods in pairs. One pair moved within 20 meters of her position, rifles slung in ready carry, eyes scanning. Their steps were slow, deliberate, not reckless. They knew she was here. Anna pressed lower, letting the forest swallow her. Patience, let them pass. But the taller one with the scar on his cheek slowed, crouching. His gloved hand brushed the ground, lifting something. He muttered to his partner, holding it up. Brass. A casing she had dropped in the scramble earlier. The man smiled, a predator's grin. He raised his hand, signaling. The others shifted toward him. They had her trail. Anna's jaw clenched. Waiting wasn't an option now. She slid from behind the log, moved like a shadow. 10 meters. 8. She closed the gap as the scarred man lifted his rifle. His eyes flicked up, catching the blur of her movement. Too late. Anna surged forward, knife flashing. Her left hand clamped his mouth shut as the blade pressed to his throat. "Don't move," she whispered, voice colder than the wind. He stiffened, eyes wide. His partner froze, rifle half raised. One sound and he bleeds. Anna hissed, knife biting skin. The partner's finger twitched on the trigger, then stopped. Training warred with fear. Anna leaned close to the scarred man's ear. "How many?" His eyes darted, then he whispered, 6 total. Communications? Check-ins every 15. Next in? He glanced at his watch. 2 minutes. Perfect. You'll report false, Anna said. Tell them you saw movement west. Then you drop your gear and wait. Understand? He nodded, stiff. She eased her hand from his mouth, knife still at his throat. He raised his radio with trembling fingers, voice steady. Overwatch, possible visual. Movement west of my position. Investigating. A burst of static confirmed receipt. The rest of the team would shift. Now drop it, Anna ordered. Weapons, radio, pack. He obeyed. She zip-tied his wrists with his own gear, gagged him, left him breathing but neutralized. His partner she forced to lie face down, bound the same way. She took their ammunition, their spare magazines, and the thermal tablet one of them carried. The screen lit up, showing blips, each team member tracked via GPS tags. Technology, their strength now hers. Anna smiled grimly. The hunters had just become the hunted. She moved fast, circling east while the tablet showed 3 dots sweeping west in search of the decoy. The last dot lingered closer to the SUVs, probably the team leader coordinating. Anna slipped through the trees, boots careful, rifle cradled. Her breathing was steady now, nerves sheathed in steel. Her father's voice whispered in her mind, "Become the mountain. Move only when it moves." The first target came into view near a ridge outcrop. He scanned the tree line, rifle up, unaware. Anna settled behind a boulder, sighted through the Remington. The suppressed round cracked. He dropped instantly, body folding into the snow. The other 2 blips on the tablet paused. Voices rising in confusion. Anna didn't wait. She sprinted deeper into the forest, forcing distance. Her watch ticked. The scarred man's missed check-in would alert them soon. She needed to split them further, divide and isolate. She typed a false message into the tablet. Thermal contact south near stream. Sent under the captured ID. Seconds later, one blip peeled south. Another moved north to cover flank. Perfect. Now they were singles. Vulnerable. Anna shadowed the one heading south, using cover to mask her movements. He stopped at the stream's edge, scanning with goggles. She crept closer, heart hammering with controlled rhythm. 10 meters, 5. She rose, pistol whispering 3 times. The man crumpled, snow blooming red beneath him. She grabbed his pack, rifled through. More ammo, another radio. She disabled the GPS tag, letting his dot vanish from the map. Confusion would follow. 2 left. The last pair regrouped near the SUVs, their leader furious. Anna watched from cover as he barked into a secure handset, voice sharp, movements clipped. He was no mere contractor. His bearings screamed CIA special activities, Weller's direct leash. Anna's fury surged. She remembered Hayes's words, her father's face in the photo beside Kareem and Weller. This man was a cog in the same machine that had destroyed her family. She sighted through the Remington. The leader paced near the SUV, his partner scanned outward. Too much distance for stealth. She needed disruption. Her eyes flicked upward. Above the SUVs, the slope held precarious snow fractured by the storm. Another avalanche waiting. She adjusted, fired into the weak point. The round punched through. A heartbeat later, the mountainside groaned, then roared. Snow cascaded down, engulfing the clearing. The vehicles vanished under white fury. Shouts turned to screams. Anna dropped flat, the shock wave rattling her teeth. When the rumble ceased, silence returned. The clearing was a grave. She rose, breath ragged, scanning. The tablet showed no blips now, either buried or disabled. She exhaled slowly, tension easing. But relief was fleeting. Her radio crackled. Hayes's voice, tight. Shadow, extraction window in 45. Location shifted. Hansen will guide you to Clearwater. Move now. Anna tightened her pack, wiped blood from her lip. The cache was secure, but Weller's reach stretched further than she had imagined. Mercenaries, SUVs, coordination. It was bigger than one ambush. She slipped from the ridge, moving toward the valley floor. Every muscle screamed, but her resolve was fire. The journey was brutal. She wove through ravines, crossed frozen streams, and pushed across open fields under the cloak of night. Each step carried the weight of pursuit. Eyes she couldn't see, orders whispered from Washington to erase her existence. By the time she reached Clearwater, darkness had swallowed the valley. The town was quiet, a scattering of lights, smoke curling from chimneys. Anna moved cautiously, circling behind the general store. She tapped softly at the back door. It opened a crack, revealing Hansen's weathered face. His eyes widened at her bloodied, frostbitten state, but he didn't ask questions. Inside, he muttered. She stepped into warmth, the smell of coffee and leather flooding her senses. For a moment, her body swayed with exhaustion. Hansen steadied her. "They came for you?" "They're dead," Anna said flatly, "but more will come." Hansen nodded. "Trucks ready. Trail road south. They won't expect it." Anna collapsed into a chair, her hands trembling as she drew the container from her pack. She opened it, showing Hansen the notebook and the USB. "This is what my father died for." Hansen's eyes darkened. "Then we get it where it needs to go." She closed the lid, locking it tight. Outside, the wind moaned against the glass, carrying with it the promise of more hunters, more battles, more betrayal. Anna straightened, shoulders squaring despite the pain. The war wasn't over. It had only changed shape. Now it wasn't just Omega's survival at stake, it was the truth her father had bled for, and Anna Monroe was ready to fight the shadow that had haunted them both. The truck's headlights carved narrow tunnels through the dark forest road, bouncing with every rut and bend. Anna sat in the passenger seat, her pack wedged tight between her knees, one hand resting protectively on the metal container inside. Hansen drove with the ease of a man who had known these roads his entire life, though his eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror as if he expected shadows to solidify into headlights. "You're pale as a ghost," he said quietly, his weathered hands gripping the wheel. "You're running on fumes." Anna shook her head. "No choice. If I stop now, it's over. Weller's people won't quit. They'll burn every tree in Montana if they have to." Hansen gave a dry chuckle. "Then let's hope we get you out before they bring the matches." The silence stretched as the truck wound deeper into the wilderness. Outside, the night was sharp and still, the forest heavy with frost. Every sound carried, branches cracking, owls calling, the growl of the engine. Finally, Hansen broke the quiet. "Your father! Jonathan saved my life once. Desert storm. I was a young Marine, lost in a sandstorm, walked straight into an Iraqi position. Would have died right there if he hadn't been watching through his scope. 3 rounds, 3 kills. He guided me back with rifle flashes, never asked for a thing in return." Anna's throat tightened. She imagined her father younger, steady behind the scope, saving lives with the same calm precision she had carried into Afghanistan. He had been more than a soldier. He had been a compass, one stolen from her, under a lie. "I have to finish what he started," she said softly. Hansen's grip tightened on the wheel. "Then you'd better hold on, because we've got company." Anna snapped her head around. In the mirror, 2 faint beams of light cut through the trees. Headlights, getting closer. "Drive," she ordered. Hansen pressed the accelerator, the truck jolting over frozen ruts. The headlights behind swerved, accelerated. Black SUVs, silent but relentless. Anna unzipped the pack, yanked out the Remington she had salvaged. She slid open the window, the freezing wind clawing into the cab. She sighted quickly, fired. The suppressed crack echoed, and one SUV swerved, a tire blown. It careened off into the trees, metal screaming. The second SUV pressed harder. Its grille filled the mirror, nearly kissing the truck's tailgate. Muzzle flashes sparked from the passenger window, rounds hammered into the truck bed, glass exploding. Hansen cursed, fighting the wheel. Anna leaned out, sighted again, squeezed. The shot punched through the windshield. The SUV swerved, clipped a tree, and vanished in a bloom of sparks. Silence followed, broken only by the labored roar of the truck. Hansen slowed only when the forest opened into a broad clearing. He cut the engine, breath steaming. "We're here. Extraction point." Anna slid from the truck, boots crunching frost. The clearing was empty but for a flare stick burning faintly in the snow. Her radio crackled alive. "Shadow, this is Omega 1. Hayes's voice came through, strong, grounded. "Hold your position." Black Hawk inbound. Relief surged through Anna, but it was short-lived. From the tree line behind them, movement flickered. Dozens of shadows, mercenaries more than before, advancing in silence. "They're here," Anna hissed. Hayes's voice hardened. "Hold, Shadow. Bird's 2 minutes out. Just 2. 2 minutes might as well have been 2 lifetimes." Anna dropped to one knee, rifle braced, scanning. The first wave of mercenaries burst from the trees, weapons flashing. She fired, one dropping instantly. Hansen opened up with a shotgun from the truck bed, blasts rolling thunder through the clearing. The enemy pushed harder. Bullets chewed snow around Anna, tore bark from trees. She shifted, fired again, another figure crumpling. Her lungs burned, her hips screamed, but her hands were steady. A shadow loomed to her left. She swung the pistol, fired 3 times. The man collapsed, his weapon clattering from limp fingers. She reloaded fast, breath ragged. Then the air changed. A low vibration thrummed through the ground. The chop of rotors. The Black Hawk roared overhead, downdraft whipping snow into a storm. Door gunners leaned out, M134 miniguns shrieking as tracers carved across the clearing. Mercenaries dove for cover, their advance shattered move. Hayes's voice barked through comms. Anna sprinted toward the landing zone, Hansen close behind. Bullets snapped past, men shouting in fury. The Black Hawk hovered low, side door open. Hayes himself crouched inside, hand outstretched. Anna hurled herself forward. Strong hands seized her, dragged her into the bird. Hansen clambered after, his shotgun clattering to the deck. The Black Hawk surged upward, tracers spitting from its guns, ripping the ground below. Inside, Chaos, the wounded from Afghanistan, were strapped in stretchers, pale but alive. Cooper turned his head, eyes glassy but lit with recognition. "You made it," he croaked. Anna clasped his hand briefly, then turned to Hayes. The colonel's face was streaked with dirt and blood, but his eyes burned clear. "You have it?" he demanded. Anna pulled the container from her pack, set it between them. "My father's cash, cold harvest, everything." Hayes stared at it, jaw tight. For a moment the roar of the Black Hawk faded, and the weight of decades pressed into the small metal box. Then his expression hardened. Weller knows. This was too coordinated, too precise. He'll come at us with everything he has left. Anna leaned closer, voice low but sharp. Then we hit back harder. Hayes's eyes met hers, respect etched deep. Your father would be proud. The Black Hawk banked, the forest rolling away beneath them. Behind, the clearing vanished into smoke and fire. Ahead, only uncertainty. Anna tightened her grip on the container. She wasn't just carrying evidence, she was carrying her father's voice, his sacrifice, his unfinished war. For the first time in years she felt clarity, not just as a sniper, not just as Shadow, but as a daughter, a soldier, a hunter. This wasn't over, it had only begun. The rotor thunder faded long after the Black Hawk had disappeared into the night, leaving only silence and the taste of cordite in the air. For Anna Monroe, the silence was never truly silent. Behind it lived the echoes of Afghanistan's mountains, the roar of avalanches, the sharp cries of men caught in ambush, the metallic crack of 6 shots that had kept a team alive. Behind it lived her father's ghost, steady as ever, reminding her that patience was a weapon and truth a bullet too heavy to miss. The story we've shared wasn't just a mission report. It wasn't just a sniper's diary etched in blood and snow. It was the unraveling of a lie. It was the revelation that enemies don't always come from across the border or the other side of the battlefield. Sometimes they wear your patch, speak your language, and brief you into a death trap with a smile. Anna carried her father's legacy, not in medals or folded flags, but in a battered notebook, a photograph, and a drive full of names and operations buried so deep they were meant never to see the light. Operation Cold Harvest wasn't a conspiracy whispered by soldiers drunk on paranoia. It was a machine. It was the hand that guided enemies into being, that sowed chaos to reap profit, that fed on endless wars while men like Jonathan Monroe bled into the dirt. And Anna, one woman with a rifle, with scars both fresh and old, stood in the crosshairs of that machine. She didn't ask for the fight. It was forced onto her shoulders, but when the trap snapped shut, she didn't fold. She climbed, she crawled, she bled. She fought back one bullet, one heartbeat, one decision at a time. Her journey took her from the Hindu Kush, where Task Force Omega faced annihilation, to the frozen ridges of Montana, where her father's secrets waited like buried mines. Every step between was marked by fire. Mercenaries came for her. Black SUVs prowled like wolves through the snow. Betrayal sharpened its knives in Washington while her body froze, starved and ached. Yet she survived. And survival wasn't luck. Survival was skill, forged by Jonathan Monroe's relentless lessons. By every early morning on Dawn Ridge, every target struck, every hour learning that patience and resolve were heavier than fear. She survived because her father had built her into more than a sniper. He had built her into a hunter, But survival is not victory, because as the Black Hawk rose into the night, as Hayes clutched the cache like a holy relic, as Omega's wounded whispered disbelief that they were still breathing, Anna knew the fight was far from over. Weller was still out there. Cold Harvest still turned in the dark, its gears greased by silence and money. The war her father had tried to expose was alive. That is where the story ends for now, on a knife's edge between revelation and retribution. And that's where you come in. VeteranBiker is more than a channel. It's a place where we ride through stories that deserve to be told, the kind that make your pulse spike, that peel back the layers of what war and sacrifice really mean, stories that remind us of the shadows carved by betrayal and the light sparked by loyalty. Anna's fight is fiction built from truths soldiers know all too well. The chaos of an ambush, the silence after a shot, the gnawing knowledge that sometimes the enemy isn't wearing another uniform at all. We tell these stories because they matter, because courage, betrayal, sacrifice, these are the threads of human history. And whether it's on a mountain ridge, a desert base, or the deck of a carrier, the truth is always worth fighting for. So let me ask you this, if you've ridden with us through Anna's story, through every explosion, every whispered revelation, every heartbeat where it could have all ended, where are you watching from? Drop your city, your country, your campfire in the comments. Let us know how far this ride travels, and if you believe these stories need to keep being told, if you want to see where Anna's hunt leads, how deep Cold Harvest goes, and what shadows will fall across the next battlefield, make sure you're subscribed to VeteranBiker. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to remember that truth isn't free, that survival isn't the end, that sometimes one bullet can change everything. Because here's the truth, Anna Monroe's fight is not over, and neither is ours. There's more coming. More fire, more revelations, more battles that will make you question who stands beside you and who pulls the strings. Stay with us. Ride with us. And when the next story breaks, be here at the start. For now, thank you. Thank you for listening, for watching, for carrying these stories with us. Thank you for keeping alive the echoes of men and women who refused to quit. This has been VeteranBiker. Check out the next stories rolling on your screen right now, because the war never ends, and neither do the rides. And remember, the shadows are always out there. The question is, will you face them?